Hello and welcome to the Fire in the Valley show. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Barby Ingle. Good afternoon to you, I think. I think that's right, isn't it? Good afternoon.
Yes, that is right. Thank you so much, Mighty Pete. I'm so excited to be here and to share with your audience. Thank you so much for having me on.
Listen, it's great to have you on. I love the energy already. So you just telling me you're phoning in all the way from Arizona today, so it's quite a long way away. So listen,
Yes.
tell us, who are you, what do you do, and where are you from?
I'm Barby Ingle, and I am in Gold Canyon, Arizona. I am an author and a reality personality, and one of the things that I do most is I'm a patient advocate, and I run the International Pain Foundation and all of the projects that we do to help people who live with chronic pain diseases.
Wow, okay. Talk to us first
A
of all
lot.
about a lot. Yeah, I mean you're a very busy woman there.
Yes.
Talk to us about the Pain Foundation first of all.
Sure. The International Pain Foundation helps patients from all over the world. We have 4 areas of focus: education, awareness, social events, and access to care. And it's different for people who are in different countries. And each person faces their own challenges. Even if 2 people have the same disease, it can be a totally different experience for both of them, getting through the minefield of the health systems. And we help them through that process.
Well, that's one. It's a very powerful. I mean, it's going to sound strange, but can you describe or define pain for us?
Oh, yeah, that's um there is actually a difference in pain. So
Okay.
there's acute pain that lasts for a short period. Maybe you broke your arm or you stubbed your toe. Stubbing your toe would be real short amount of time. Breaking your arm might be a few months. And then there's chronic intractable pain that lasts for longer than 6 months. And there's over 150 different conditions that involve the chronic intractable pain. And that's where we put most of our focus. But pain can be physical, spiritual, or emotional. So it can affect you in many different ways. It can affect every aspect of your life. And we don't do as much work with short term pain conditions, although we do cover pain. Um, we mostly focus on the ones that are affecting people long term and on a daily basis, that's making them live moment to moment instead of just living life.
Oh wow. So I mean that's interesting. You define pains in 3 categories there: the physical,
Yes,
physical, emotional, and spiritual.
yes,
Can you separate those for us? Somebody
yeah.
to help them
Physical,
understand.
yeah. It's interesting because when we first started, we didn't do this. We just said chronic pain, and we've evolved to separate them out because they affect us in different ways. So the physical pain is anything that your body is feeling. So whether there's a reason for the pain or not, your shoulder could hurt or your leg could hurt or your nerves could feel like they're on fire. That's what I experience. And then the mental pain could be mental illness, or it could also encompass those people who have physical pain who are having trouble concentrating, thinking, remembering, because they're in so much physical pain, it's affecting them cognitively and not letting them live their life to the fullest, physically or emotionally. And then there's also spiritual pain where people disconnect from God or spirit or that being. You know, Bill Gates back in 2005 announced to the CIA here in the United States that he found the God code in our DNA. So if you don't fill it with God, it needs to be filled with something. Hopefully, it's something positive. And but they actually found that humans have something in our DNA that brings us this what they call the God code, and you can have that space be voided and not be spiritual, not necessarily religious, but spiritual in nature. And then you'll find that that's affecting your life in different areas as well.
Oh wow. It's yeah, I mean it's a hugely interesting topic, and I know obviously it's something very personal to you, but first of all, I'll probably possibly go slightly backwards, but what has pain taught you then?
Great question. Pain has taught me to live life to the fullest that the thing that's the most important here on earth is human connection. And everybody that comes into your life, whether it's the person who holds the door for you or the person sitting at your bedside when you're in the hospital, everybody's there for a reason. Sometimes it's a short-term reason, sometimes it's a long-term reason, but there's always a reason behind it. And that is to help us fulfill our purposes here on earth. And we each have a purpose. Some have found theirs. I knew mine since I can remember. I knew I was going to be a cheerleader. I always thought I was going to be a physical cheerleader. It turns out I'm supposed to be a mental cheerleader. So I've had to shift my focus and how I cheerlead, but that is my life purpose, I believe, from God, who I believe in. And all of us have a purpose of why we're here on earth. And once we fulfilled our purpose, we head on to heaven, and or the other way. But wherever we head on to, what we learn in this life will take us into the next,
That's
into our
super
eternal
interesting.
life.
Would you, I mean, and maybe, I don't know whether we want to go in this way, but I mean, would you classify yourself as spiritual, religious? Where do you sit yourself? Not that it
I would
matters.
say I would say I'm spiritual,
Mm.
not necessarily religious. I believe that there's a lot of dogma in religions. Every religion has their own way that they try to push on you, do this, do that. Really, I just bring it back to the Bible and go with the lessons taught in the Bible to live my life, and hopefully that makes me a good person. But there could be a person out there that never read the Bible in their life, and they're still a good person. It doesn't, just because you are a particular religion or have a particular label in that way, um, doesn't necessarily make you spiritual. You can say I'm a Christian but be a bad person. You can say I'm not Christian and be an amazing person. So to me, that's not necessarily the key factor. It's how you're living your life.
No, listen, that's great. I love it. Why not? So tell me, what makes Barbie Barbie and so unique and wonderful in who you are?
Oh goodness. I think what makes Barbie Barbie is that I am not afraid to fail. I am not afraid to do something that I have a fear of. I will, there was once a roller coaster, it's called Dr. Death's Doom Drop, and at Universal Studios. And I was so afraid of it, I rode it 8 times in a row to get over my fear. And I think that that is something for me that I equate life to, say, a football game. You keep cheering. As a cheerleader, I keep cheering, even if the team is losing, because I always have hope that we can come back and do a little bit better, even if we're losing 50-0 until the game's over, we're still playing. And that to me is like life. In life, you got to keep going. I have a 100% win rate every day I've woken up for the last 48 years, and I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. I still have the ability to try and do and be my best. And that's all we can ask of people, is to try their best. So I would say what makes me me is that I have fears, but I don't let them stop me.
Are you where you're supposed to be now, do you think?
I think that I am supposed to keep evolving. So I'm happy where I am. I'm happy with who I am, but my life purpose might be revealed even deeper. And so it might take me on a different path. If a boulder is placed before me, instead of waiting for it to be removed, I find a way over, under, through, around, whatever I have to do to accomplish my goal. So I don't know if I'm necessarily, because I've thought in the past I'm where I'm supposed to be, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but that has proven to be false. So I'm just going to live the best life I can in each moment that I have. And wherever that takes me is yet to be determined.
I love that. I mean, it's a beautifully open way of looking at things, right? So there's some of it's predefined per se, but the rest is.
Yeah. I believe my purpose is to be a cheerleader, but how that's accomplished is, there's a million ways to do it. And so, yeah, it's to only try to do it one way and beat my head against a brick wall when I come up against it isn't going to help me live my life, and it isn't going to help me help other people live in their life to be the best they can be. So I want to be a light for myself, but I also want to be a light for other people.
And I mean, that beautifully almost describes your story in many ways. It's that, from the cheerleader that we would maybe be sort of typically, used to cheering, but actually now, and that's evolved through your own journey, through your own, advocacy for others. So you're cheering for them in a different way, right? As you say, there's many different ways to cheer. So take us on that journey, Barbie, if you would, please.
Sure. Like I said earlier, I was taking life for granted, and I had already conquered endometriosis. I was getting back to fully living the life that I was. I was the head cheerleading and dance coach at Washington State University in Washington State, United States. And I was traveling around. I had my own cheer and dance training company. So I was teaching, besides coaching, I was also teaching elementary through high school students how to become and be better cheerleaders with the technical skills of cheerleading. And all of a sudden, I was in an 8-second car accident, and my life changed in those 8 seconds. I did not know it at the time, and I fought really hard to hold on to that life and keep going with that life, and ended up having to realize that I still had the purpose of being a cheerleader, but that wasn't my purpose. I actually had a rare disease, and it took from 2002 to 2005 to get a proper diagnosis. In that time, I was undertreated, overtreated, mistreated. I saw 42 providers that got it wrong before I got to the 43rd provider who got it right. Even though he got it right, it still took me another 4 years to get the right treatment that was for me. And I spent most of that 7 years bedbound or in a wheelchair when I did leave the house or the bed. And I had a lot of time to reflect on me, who I was, how I could help myself, how I could help other people. And in December 2009, I was able to get a treatment in Pennsylvania. And I went into the hospital in a wheelchair, and 7 days later, I walked out. Although it was a little wobbly because my legs were pretty weak still, I was able to walk out on my own power, and that was one great day. and really, it just showed me that I just have to persevere and keep going. And even in the darkest times, I had this glimmer of hope. But in the best of times, my hope is very huge, maybe like a forest fire. And that little spark grew and led me to where I was able to advocate for other people and help other people. And I use my story to show other people that they too can make it through whatever they are going through, whatever challenges placed before them, and also to help people get access to proper and timely care. Because like I said, it took me so long to get the access to that care. Now I want to give people some tidbits and help so that their journey doesn't look like mine, because far too often it does.
Oh wow! I mean, and if I've done the math right, roughly you were around 30 when the accident happened. If I've got my
Yep,
math right.
29. I was just about to turn 30.
Wow.
And yeah, it was not a good 30th birthday. I they told me when I went to the hospital at first, they said, you have whiplash, you'll be better in 3 or 4 days. And here we are, 19 years later. So it's or 20 years later. 2020 doesn't count in my mind because we were all locked down. But it really was an incredible journey that I'm still on. I still have health challenges, even though I'm in and out of remission now. I'm able to walk on my own. Just last week, I went to a doctor appointment, and they were doing a hearing test, and that hearing test affected a nerve in my ear, and it made me bedbound for 2 days again. So you never know what is going to be put in front of you, but I do know that as long as I wake up, that I've overcome the hardest obstacle, which is living.
Wow. Are you a good patient?
Now I am. That's one of my favorite questions ever. So in the beginning, I was not a good patient. I listened to the doctor. Whatever doctor was in front of me, I did whatever they told me, letter for letter, word for word, whatever they said, I tried. And that is actually not being a good patient. Being a good patient is advocating for yourself, speaking up, talking about what you need, what treatment options there are, doing research, doing your homework in between appointments, questioning the providers, looking at what's coming down the pipeline and figuring out what fits for you. Because like I say many times, just because two people have the exact same condition doesn't mean that they'll react the same way to any treatment. And there's genetic factors, there are environmental factors, lifestyle factors. So you really have to pay attention and be your own chief of staff. Organize them, especially if you have a chronic condition. Organize a team around you. I have my primary doctor, who he and I are the co-captains of the team. And then I have all my specialists from cardiac, pulmonary, physical therapist, pharmacist, all vascular doctor, general surgeons, specific surgeons, GI doctors. They all are on my team, but they all have to go through my primary care doctor and myself before I will try any treatment that they place before me now, just to make sure that it's right for me. Because I've had a lot of adverse reactions to medications, to durable medical equipment, and different treatments that I've tried over the years. And I have to be comfortable because I'm the one who has to live on with whatever adverse reaction comes from what I choose to try.
Through all that, it almost sounds like you're potentially more qualified than some doctors in a strange way.
Yeah, I actually now teach medical providers, not just doctors, but also nurses and all the specialties that are involved in a chronic pain disease. They actually get credit hours for listening to me talk and share my story and the tips and tools that I learned, so that they can learn it. They usually don't hear it because when you go in to see a provider, especially here in the United States, you get about 15 minutes with the doctor. And you can't really get, if you're not organized and you're not being the best patient you can be, you're going to go in there and you're not going to get the most out of it that you should or could. And so I teach the doctors when I'm not their patient, so that when they are there helping their patient, they're better at asking the questions, because not every patient is like me. Not every patient is going to be a good patient. Do the research, do the homework, and take care of themselves to the best that they can. And also I have my husband as my caregiver, who is there with me on my journey on a daily basis, that is also a objective voice at the provider appointments. So when these doctors hear me give a presentation, they actually get credit hours, and I'm actually teaching them. And there's no stigma between, this is my patient, I need to be the authority in the situation. And that's what I teach during those sessions with the providers.
That's awesome. At least it was the insight to actually gain a use out of your knowledge, your insights, your experiences, right? To actually say, well, this is useful stuff here, rather than just saying, I don't know, here she comes again,
Exactly. That's how our foundation started. Every year for Thanksgiving, our family would do a family project. And so each year we would pick different things, like going and singing Christmas carols at people's houses, or going to a nursing home and sitting with elderly who don't have a lot of family around, so that they're not alone during the holiday season, going to libraries and reading books to other people that are there, whether it's the parents or the children. So every year we'd pick a different thing. And in 2006, my older brother was the one who acknowledged that, hey, what is happening to Barbie is happening to other people. It has to be. We can do something about it. And my dad said, well, if we're going to do this, we got to do it right. And we have to start a charity and follow all the rules and regulations of a charity. And that's how we can help people the most. And that's how it came about. It came about as a family project and grew into an international foundation.
I love that. I mean, it's so powerful that one, as you say, you've taken something useful and then you've taken a pain and made it into, I don't know if I want to say a pleasure, but something certainly a bit of a respite or hope for others as well, right?
Absolutely. That's why I say I'm a cheerleader of hope. And when we first started, our foundation was called The Power of Pain because I was taking life for granted prior to the pain, and pain made me a better person, which is very an odd statement for people to say. Now, I do not like pain. I do not want pain. I do not wish pain on anybody. But if you have to live with it, for instance, I have a rare disease, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. If you have to live with it, you should make the best of whatever situation you're in. And that's the power of pain, is it brought me to being a better person, to having more patience and more willingness to speak up and be the best me I could be.
Is that, in your experience, sort of the most useful reworking of pain, if you like? I mean, you talked about allowing it to be the best, or allowing you to help you become the best version of you. You put it much more eloquently than I just have, but is that the most useful thing you can do with pain?
Well, I think so. If you have pain and you're just a negative Nancy and you're all the time just down in the dumps and you see all the negative in what it is, and it is a very challenging situation. If you can find the positives in that situation, it can help you. It doesn't help take the pain away or lessen the pain physically. It can help you emotionally, can help you spiritually. It doesn't necessarily take the physical pain away, but if you can help get the physical pain lowered through treatment modalities, and then focus on the mental pain that you go through, losing so much in your life is going to be depressing. It is going to cause anxiety, and it is going to bring other emotional aspects into your life. If you can get those under control, and if you can talk positively to yourself, it can help you through the worst physical pain. Now, is it the cure? No. Is it helpful? Yes. So that's what I've come to, is it doesn't help to just sit there and complain about the pain, because that just brings down my physical, mental, emotional being. And if I can help one area more than, less challenging as I can help another area, why not do that? Why not make it a more holistic approach to dealing with living with disabilities or limits on my life? I can make the best of them, and still remember, there's a million ways to accomplish something. It might not look how you want it to, but life's not easy, life's not fair. Sometimes it takes something hard to get the life lesson that moves you towards your purpose. And that's what chronic pain is for me, and for anybody who suffers with the chronic pain disease.
Wow. And as you speak there, I mean, I sort of get this picture. I mean, is this like a manifestation cycle? You have a physical pain, which then triggers an emotional pain, which triggers spiritual pain, and potentially, if the cycle's not broke, it becomes a cycle and an ongoing thing.
It can, and also having depression, having anxiety is actually chemicals that are running through your body. And so it is saying, hey, pay attention, something's wrong. And again, who wouldn't get depressed when, like for me, I lost my marriage of 10 years, I lost my house, I went down to food stamps, I really didn't know where I was going to be living next or what I was going to do next. And that's a lot of stress and pressure, but it also brings you down emotionally, which triggers chemicals in your body, which triggers the pain, the physical pain, to get worse. So if you can get that area under control and into a proper balance, it can help lower the physical pain. It can help bring you to a stronger spiritual life, and all of that being in balance as best it can be for you, despite the limitations physically. Why not live that best life that is obtainable?
Hmm. How do you cope generally with, those sort of situations of overwhelm or that sort of changing environment? Are you a good coper, if that's the right word?
uh, I allow myself to have the emotion of whatever the situation is,
Hmm.
and then for a period of time, and it's different. When my father passed away, that was a very emotional time. That took a couple years to get through. Other things where I felt like demoralized by a provider or something, that's a little less tragic than losing your parents, because I lost both my mother and father within the same year.
Mm.
I think that just allowing myself to have the grief, but not letting myself feel guilt. If somebody tries to guilt me, like they want me to do something and I physically can't, I just actually I do a motion where I grab the guilt off of me and I drop it back out in front of them and say, this guilt's not mine. This guilt is yours. I'm giving it back to you. I'm not going to accept your guilt. And that has helped me get through and has helped me let go of the emotions quicker and sooner. But when you have something tragic happen, I've lost many friends to suicide due to them not being able to cope with pain. And the choice that they made was suicide, which to me is very sad. But for them, how can I judge that that's the choice that they made? It isn't the choice that I would choose or make. And it's a sad choice, because in society, we should be able to help each other more than that. And we have a lot to do in society to make up for the lack of help and the increase in stigma. And when someone says I have this chronic disease, that's not what society is based on. Society is okay with acute things like you break your bone or you have a baby and you need a little time. They are not good when you say I have a chronic illness. The next thing you hear is, well, when are you going to be better? It's like, I just said I have a chronic illness. What do you mean, when am I going to get better? And it kind of can ebb and flow, but give yourself the permission to mourn the things that you lost, but then move on and know that you're still living, you still have a purpose, you're still here on earth. Now let's move forward.
Wow. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How was it for you to actually get the correct diagnosis? Because I mean, you mentioned that elongated period of not knowing, and even the frustration in your voice as you spoke about that. I mean, talk to us about that if you would, please.
Yeah, it was very frustrating, being told I had whiplash and I'd be better in 3 or 4 days. As someone who was working out in a gym with trainers 6 to 7 days a week, who had team doctors around me, who had what I thought was the best of the best medical care for an athlete and a coach, to go through something that I tried so hard to get over, and have providers tell me they couldn't help me, they didn't have anything to offer me. The Washington State doctors told me to move to Arizona for better medical care, and I'm thinking, well, I got the best doctors. How can you sit here and tell me that I need to move when I already have the best doctors? That was eye-opening, and I still wasn't picking up the hints that were being dropped, to not rely on someone else for my health, to become a leader in my own health. But it was very frustrating. Doctor after doctor couldn't figure it out. Would only look at their specific area of expertise. If they're a surgeon, they're going to suggest surgery. If they're a chiropractor, they're going to say you need to get more adjustments more often. It really depended on their specialty, until I got to a provider that looked at all of my records from the first 42 providers and said, okay, I think I know what it is, but gave me a week. Well, he said as much time as you need. It took me a week to go home, research and study, and be comfortable with the testing he wanted to give me to be ready to get the proper diagnosis. And that was 3 years into my journey, when I had lost all trust in medical providers, but yet I still was fighting to get my life back and to be the best I could be. And it was a constant struggle of, I got to go to these providers because I know I wouldn't have given up the life that I had. At the same time, they didn't know. They did not know what to do. One of them, I even had done some research and went to and said, I think I have this disease called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And he said, oh, 100% you don't have it. The 43rd doctor was like, well, what test did he do? How does he know you don't have that? And he hadn't done any tests. It was just his opinion. He didn't know enough about the disease to even give an opinion, yet he gave an opinion and it was incorrect. So it really was a frustrating time, but I also never lost the will or the hope that answers would be found. I just had to keep searching.
Where does that hope come from? I mean, that's quite powerful to have that even after your experience.
Yeah, I was born with hope, I would say. I mean, I don't consciously remember age 1, 2, and 3, but at 4 years old, I consciously know I had hope. I grew up with a learning disability, and my mom, especially, but both of my parents fought hard to get me special education in school. And I even went to summer school every single summer so that I could catch up to the rest of my class. So I never had to stay behind a grade. I could stay with my class, but it took a lot of extra work. And for me, there was always the hope that I'll get through. I didn't get my first A in school until fourth grade, and I got my next A when I was graduating college. My last semester, I got a 4.0, one semester in college, my last semester, just before graduation. But it was like something clicked in my brain, and I had the hope that this would happen. And it finally one day, because I didn't give up, it happened. And the hope, that little spark, kept me going all those years. And so when it came to my health, I had the spark there. I was born with it. I just needed to keep going until I won.
That's super interesting. I mean, the hope, and that's a form of manifestation almost, right? It's like, you just knew you were going to get another A, and there's the belief, there's the goal setting, there's a lot there. So that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me.
And I would say, people, if you are having trouble accomplishing your goals, write them down, manifest them, speak them out loud in a positive way. Not that I'll never reach my goal. Don't say that. Talk about when you reach your goal, and don't put guilt on yourself if you are having bad days, weeks, or months, or years that you're not accomplishing your goal. As long as you're alive, you can take small steps to get to that final goal. And once you've reached that goal, set more.
Wow, I love it. What was Barbie's original plan? What was you going to do when she grew up?
When I was 4, I told my parents I'm going to be a cheerleader the rest of my life. And my dad said, nope, you're not. And he said, you're going to get a real degree, you're going to get a real education, and you're going to have a real job. And so in college, again, when I was 12, I told him the same thing. He told me the same thing. Nope, you're going to go to college and you can be a cheerleader, but you have to fall back on something else, a real career. And I got a degree in social psychology, and I was going to be a psychologist. And I graduated from college. I moved from Virginia to Washington State to go get married. And the first week I was there, my wedding wasn't until a month after I moved. My first week there, I was exercising, and I walked by high school, and the cheerleaders were out practicing, and they were the worst cheerleaders I've ever seen in my life. And I said, they need help, and I feel like I need to help them. And I went down and I got a business license and started my own company a week after graduating college, thinking that I was going to get a job as a psychologist, and ended up going straight into coaching and training cheerleaders and dancers. And then a year later, I was the first head coach hired at Washington State University for the Spirit program, which was the cheerleaders, the dancers, and the mascot program. And it was like, oh, I was supposed to be staying in cheerleading. And what I kept telling my dad, I'm going to be a cheerleader the rest of my life, was accurate and true. I just, like I said, I didn't know that I was going to be more of a mental cheerleader than a physical cheerleader.
Is there a connection there with this? Obviously, the psychology and the cheerleading. Is there a connection?
Possibly, because although I didn't actually use my degree, I did use it in coaching. I coached up to 56 student athletes in a year. And so it was psychology of keeping the team going, working on the interpersonal conflicts, knowing the stages of forming a group and how to get through them. Like every group that you ever have goes through 5 stages. forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. And you form once and you adjourn once. But those three in the middle, you constantly cycle through. And if you find yourself storming a lot or fighting a lot to set the norms, there's techniques that you can use to get into the norming and then the performing. And I was able to use what I learned in psychology as a coach, although it wasn't one-on-one counseling. Sometimes if a student athlete was having trouble, I would pull them into my office and help them. But most of the time it was the working dynamics of keeping our group functioning and performing at its best. And we were top 5 in the country when I got RSD and was no longer able to coach. And ever since then, the new coaches came in and I had worked the team up to a high caliber and being nationally ranked. And that year was named in the top coaches in the United States and top 5 choreographers in the country. And I got sick and my whole life changed right at my peak. So it definitely worked in my training and coaching. And although I never actually got to use it as a psychologist.
Wow, it's an amazing journey. And Thomas, what does the values of cheerleading,
Sure.
what is it? Talk to me.
Yeah, so a lot of people just think like cheerleaders are these girls out there in short skirts doing flips and kicks and entertaining the crowd. Really, we are there to psych up the crowd. So there's a lot of motivational and inspirational tools and techniques that cheerleaders use that we have to learn so that we can keep the crowd engaged to help pump up the players on the field and get them to perform at their best capacity. And so we're using those techniques, but there's also time management, responsibility, organization, entrepreneurship that come into play. A lot of times cheer and dance programs are not funded very well. So we would have to go out and do fundraising and learn to talk to people in the community. We would be the community ambassadors to go out into the community and say, hey, we're cheering on our team and we need you guys to come out to the game. And so we're going to be here for you. It's your dental office or your car salesman lot. And we're out here cheering you on so that you can come and cheer our team on. And not necessarily our cheerleading team. We were doing it to motivate the community to get involved, to come cheer on the players so that our football team or basketball team or track, cross country, soccer, all the different sports could do better in what their goals were. And so really being a cheerleader is helping other people achieve their goals at the same time as honing your own talents. Kind of what I do now as a mental cheerleader.
I love it, yeah. I mean, all the skills, as you say, and it's tying it all together, and the psychology of that, the spiritual and the emotional support, if you like, as well. Whilst you can't run on the field and sort of play the actual game, what you can do is support all the other aspects, which is ironically probably more important.
Absolutely. And even when we are in that game mode and we're on the field doing the performing stage of a group, we are there to motivate the crowd and to show the crowd what to do. So on first down, you're going to, for the other team, you're going to make a lot of noise. Second down is a little more playful, and we're going to perform. And fourth down, we're like, make all the noise you can. Let's give our team the fighting chance to get through this so that we can get the ball and do well. We need to stop. We need to put defense down. So it really, we're basically leading the game, providing the entertainment, but also leading the crowd to help the players that are there for whatever the sport is we're cheering for at the time.
That makes sense.
And we're smiling. Like people, my dad especially would say, how are you smiling when your team is losing 50-0? You have no chance. And we're like, well, we have a chance to score. We have a chance to make it better than it is. And it's not over. It's not over till the last buzzer goes off at the end of the game. So we keep smiling no matter what is happening on the field. And that is a great life skill. If you, like me, find yourself living with a chronic illness, and you've lived this great life and all of a sudden it's gone. How do you keep going with a smile on your face despite the challenges that are in front of you? Cheerleading taught me that.
And that is a life lesson, isn't it, really?
Yep.
No matter what, you might necessarily be winning, but you can still be doing better, or you can achieve more, have more,
Yep.
and cheer that
And
on.
for the players on the field in that moment, hopefully we can cheer them on enough that they know that, hey, we might have not have done our best on this game, but we learned lessons that we can use in the next game. We learned what we needed to learn so that next time we can do better at defense or offense or wherever it is that we need to do better at.
Just thinking back into what you talked about earlier, really, and you're saying at 4 years of age and that special education, is there a connection there to being seen? So cheerleading and being seen to sort of avoid making a value. Does that make sense at all to you?
I got into cheerleading and dance because of my learning disability. I had problems with hand-eye coordination, and the doctors suggested to my parents that they put me in cheerleading and dance so that I could help raise my talents or lack of talents in the physical department. And so, but for me, reading was very difficult, but getting up in front of a crowd of however many people was easy. Even if I did horrible on my performance, I was confident in enough in me, in my light, to get up and perform, whether it was good or bad. It didn't matter to me what the audience thought. I knew I did my best, and that's what mattered. And so over time, because I kept going and kept participating and learning myself, I became a top talent in cheerleading and dance. But it didn't start that way. It was because I persevered in the field, and really was easy. It was easier for me to get up in front of a room full of people and talk about nothing than it was to read a book and tell you what I just read. I could read every single word. I just had problems connecting what the words meant.
It's not interesting that, I mean, it's all communication, right? But it's just finding the one that works for you.
Exactly. And that's what in college, by the time I got to my senior year in college, it was a lot about presentations and less about reading a book and taking a 50-point quiz. It was more about getting up and presenting and sharing what you knew and the knowledge that you had learned. And for me, that was so easy to get up in front of the group and share that. So I did better as I went through college than I did all the way from elementary school through high school. And it was a neat progression, but it was in college, you have the ability to do it your way more than you did the standardized kindergarten through 12th grade. This is how you do it. This is the standard curriculum. Everybody is supposed to learn the same way. And I just didn't learn the same way. I still don't learn the same way. And so having that freedom to learn in a way that was best for me was so helpful.
What is your preferred method to learn?
Multiple inputs. So I will read something, I will read it out loud, I will write down the key points, and then I will talk about it. And so having this step through process helps me be able to retain the information, comprehend the information first, and then be able to then go and teach what I've learned, as well as experiences, especially if it's a negative experience. I learn pretty quickly. So, and I think probably most of us do. You put your hand on the stove and that's a negative experience, you get burned, oh, make sure you check the stove before you put your hand on it so you don't get burned again. So if I'm in a situation that is negative, I learn pretty quickly, don't do that again. And I don't have to have all the steps if it's a pleasant experience to retain and keep the information.
No, that's I mean, that's a very strong point there in itself. I'm curious, as you were talking about earlier, I mean, obviously you've had all this communication, all these this learnings and interaction with doctors. I mean, is that always well received? I mean, if you're coming in highly immunized with information, um,
I think it depends on the provider.
okay,
So some providers are thankful and they're like, I don't have time to go do the research that you need. So thank you for not being a difficult patient. Some providers go, oh, you're bringing me more work. I didn't want to learn that. And once they learn it, then they have to act on it. In America, they have to act on it by law. So for instance, there's a test called pharmacogenomics that you can get. It's a cheek swab. It tests all the approved medications by the FDA, our governmental agency. All the medications that are approved go through genetic testing, and they use your genetics to test against the medications to tell you which medications are right for you. I did this test, and some of my providers love it and some of them hate it, because now they can't just give me a medication and say, let's see how you do. You know, adverse drug reactions are the fourth leading cause of death. So we really want to know if we're going to have an adverse reaction before we take the medication. And this test allows that to happen, but providers don't want to take the time to stop and read each individual's what's right or wrong for them. So some of the providers love it because it's helpful to the patient and they feel accomplished, like, whoo, I was able to help Barbie. This is a great day. And other of my providers are like, ugh, why did you tell me this? I don't want to know, because if they mess up or they provide me something that's on my do not give list, they're responsible and liable. They don't like that. So some of my providers are here for a short time and some of my providers are here for a longer time. And that's, I have my team and I have my core. Some have come and gone, and then my core is there and they work together to help me live the best life I can despite all the physical challenges that I have.
well, I mean, it's a, as you say, it's a process of elimination almost in the nicest possible way.
Right. Well, of my providers now, not of, I don't have to go through with the medications, I don't have to go through, will this work? Let's see what happens. There's no more of that. Now it is, do I want to keep this provider? Are they willing to work on my team as a good teammate? And if they're not, then don't be afraid to fire them and find somebody else.
I love that. I mean, yeah, it really is taking control of the situation in many ways, isn't it? You know, it's like, and it's not, which again is probably where the advocacy comes in and saying, just don't just nod your head and say, that's great, doctor. Thank you. Thank you. It's,
Yep. And you don't have to be, if you're firing a doctor, you don't have to be mean about it. You can do that in a positive, you can do everything in a positive way. But yeah, you can nod and go, yep, thank you so much for your input. I'm going to go get a second opinion now. I'm going to go and check out what some other providers think. And if you know this doesn't seem right, this doesn't feel right, I'm not comfortable, don't do it. Wait until you're comfortable, get more information. If that's a good provider that you're seeing, they'll be happy that you're going and doing research to find out if this is right for you.
how switched on are you in terms of, I suppose, communicating with your own body and also then sort of intuitively?
Great question. So I believe that now I'm great. In the beginning, I would go into the provider's office and I'd be crying and I would say, help me, fix me, something's wrong. And when I learned to communicate and I learned my adjectives, I started getting better care. So I would say I'm in pain. What is it? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 9 or a 10. I'm vomiting every day from this pain. Help me, help me, help me. They didn't know how to help me. When I went in and said, I have burning fire pain all the time, and this right side of my body is worse than the left side of my body. When I could say, sometimes I also get these other pains that are electrical. It feels like a lightning bolt comes out of the sky and hits my body, and I don't know where it's going to hit or when. It's just happening. once I was able to say, it's sharp, dull, shooting, cutting, stabbing, this pain comes on when I eat. This pain happens when I do these things, which came from me journaling and writing down when I took my medications, what activities I did that day, how I'm feeling when I wake up in the afternoon, in the evening, and looking at a pattern that was created, using that data, finding out what works, what doesn't work for me, and being able to communicate that in words that the provider understands. That's when I got the care I needed.
Isn't it funny? Again, we're back to communication. It's
Yes.
control, communication, positivity. Yeah, being able to relate, being able, just there's a cycle here. This is what I'm sort of getting, as you say, that you communicate what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. And even not just communicating with your providers, but also the people in your life that are your caregivers and your family. And I lost a lot of friends when I first got sick because I couldn't do this one thing, and that was set the expectation. I couldn't set the expectation because I had no diagnosis. I didn't know what I was facing myself. I didn't understand these bizarre symptoms and everything my body was going through and all the changes that were occurring. How could I set the expectation? Once I was able to learn the language of the providers, I could set the expectation with the providers. I could communicate with the providers. Very important to do the same thing with the family and friends that you want to keep in your life, especially if they're your caregiver. If you can set the expectation and they can learn along with you as to what you're facing now and possibly in the future, and even ways to prevent some of the harsher symptoms from even coming on, you can all work together so that you live your best life and you're not a burden or drain on them in their life. Because they go through all the same things that you're going through, except for the physical pain. But they're going through financial burdens. They're going through physical or emotional pain. They're going through a sense of loss because they've lost you. But then if they choose to have you in their life, the new you in their life, they're going to experience that loss of other friends or other family members who don't understand or choose not to understand. And as soon as you can set that expectation, the better off everybody that's around you will be.
I mean, you mentioned there previously, you're saying your first marriage of about 10 years. I mean, was there a connection between your situation and the end of that marriage? But I mean, I don't mean to pry if.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not working. At the very end, he had gotten a part-time job. He didn't understand why he needed to get a job. He didn't understand why I, as the breadwinner for the family, was not able to do that anymore. Just suck it up. He knew the old Barbie that was the athlete that had, I had injuries and gotten through them. I had endometriosis and gotten through that. Why couldn't I just suck it up? He didn't have the empathy to understand what I was going through, and he had no sympathy. So empathy is when you understand because you've been through something similar. Sympathy is understanding because you trust and believe in the person and what they're telling you they're experiencing is true and factual. So he had neither empathy or sympathy for me, and I couldn't take care of him as I was and myself, and I had to prioritize. And we didn't have a horrible breakup like fighting, and like there was no like beating and abuse or any of that physical stuff. There was some emotional abuse because he didn't understand, because I couldn't set the expectation, because he didn't want to work, because he didn't want his life to change, and it was changed. But I went to counseling, and I invited him to come to counseling with me through these changes, and he chose not to. And I started counseling saying, I want to stay married. I'm Catholic. I want to stay married. I don't want to change my beliefs. I don't believe in divorce. And less than a year later, we were divorced, uncontested. We went through it, and it was a pretty easy divorce. We just were not compatible, and my whole life was changing. I didn't know what it was. In that, after we divorced, in that period afterwards, that's when I met my husband. When we met, I was like, I'm not in for a relationship. I just got out of a 10-year marriage. I have to work on my health and my life and get back on track. And we became friends first and fell in love as we got to know each other. And really, his name is Ken. We're Ken and Barbie. So like the dolls, Ken and Barbie. And I think that's one of the biggest signs God gave me of my first husband didn't believe in God. And I thought I had enough God for both of us. Turns out I didn't. My second husband was a believer, and we're more yoked. We're on the same page. And he has a mother with multiple sclerosis, my mother-in-law, and he's a caregiver by nature. And we built that friendship, we built that love, and his personality, being a believer and being a caregiver, were exactly what I needed. And we met at the lowest point in his life and the lowest point in my life, and built a new life out of the ashes.
Wow. It's amazing that there is an expression I particularly love, and it's like, for out of the dark, out of the darkness comes a light. It is that, it can be your lowest moments can create your highest.
Yep.
And that's really quite refreshing to hear that.
Yeah. And I think I learned the lessons I needed to learn in my first marriage. My husband, Ken, I was the first person he's ever married, and I'll be the last. But the lessons that I learned in the first marriage, I was able to start fresh, start with setting it the expectation as far as how to be a good wife and how to have a strong relationship and keep it strong all these years, that I didn't get to set because I got married so early the first time. And I had known my first husband since high school, although we didn't date until college. We'd known each other for a long time. So he knew the old me. My husband now had to get used to me going into remission and being able to do more physical stuff, because he didn't get to ever see that aspect of my life prior to meeting. So for him, I'm getting younger.
Love it. It's interesting. I mean, that change, and I suppose those around you and your support and your caregivers, family, all the rest, it is a big change. I mean, it's a change for everyone. And I'm sure it's, whilst you're in the driving seat per se, they're coming on the journey with you, and not everyone's going to make it, unfortunately. That's
right.
That's
Some
tough.
of them have to get out and hitchhike back to where they were. They don't want to keep going. That's fine. That's okay. But I'm going to keep moving forward, and I feel like I have a great team around me, and a few close friends, my husband, my family, besides the ones who have passed away. My family is understanding, on board, and has been very supportive in the whole process. They didn't always understand what I was going through, but they all knew I wouldn't have given up the life I had. And so something had to be wrong. And they took that truth, and it helped them understand, even when we had no answers, who I was and what was happening to me.
Do you think in general do people get you?
The people that are supposed to get me get me. Not everybody gets me, no. But there's 7 billion people on Earth, and human connection matters, but we're not necessarily supposed to be connected to all 7 billion people on Earth. We're supposed to connect to the people that are pulled into our life, kind of like the string theory. We're all connected, and our webs and our lines cross over sometimes, but it doesn't mean that if we were a jigsaw puzzle, we all fit in the same puzzle. We're all humans, but the people that are connected to me around my puzzle piece might not fit around somebody else's puzzle piece somewhere else in the puzzle. Once in a while, you can take the same piece and hook it in somewhere else. But typically, the people that fit into your puzzle, the people that you are connected to in this world, are the people that you're supposed to be connected to for any variety of reasons, positive or negative, good or bad. They're there for a purpose.
It's interesting. We're back to purpose again. As you say, it's that. Yeah, I mean, it's powerful, right? Because whilst
Yeah,
it's been a painful journey for yourself, at the same time, it also has allowed you to do some amazing things too, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I've got to do reality television, which is reality's not real. So if you do go check out reality, no, there's only a seed of truth to each storyline for all reality shows. And then there's a writing producer. If you look in the credits, you'll see it, that helps you form it into something more entertaining. So know that, but I like doing podcasts and being myself the most. And when I get to do interviews where I get to talk about the real Barbie and the real me, that's what I enjoy the most. Although it's entertaining to get to do reality television, to get to meet the other people in reality television, to get to do the advocacy work I do and hear the patient journeys and the caregiver journeys of the people that I reach through my advocacy work. I've published 9 books. And so some of the people that meet me find me because of a book I've published, whether it's a children's book or an adult related book or a pain related book. I reach people in so many different ways, and I've got to have so many opportunities. I've been abundantly blessed in those ways, and it's been a very interesting life. Some parts were hard, some parts were easy, but it's been a blessed life.
And through all that, tell me, what are you great at and what are you terrible at?
I'm terrible at sales. I'm like, I was a shoe salesperson for a day. And
All
they
day?
tried to get
Wow.
me for a day. They tried to get me to like when the ladies would come up and say, "What does this shoe look like on my foot?" I would tell them the truth. And and they're like, "No, you're supposed to tell them that will go with so many different outfits. You need to get it in 3 colors so that you have it for every outfit, not just some of your outfits." Yeah, oh, just cram your foot in there. We don't have your size. It will be comfortable for you, but you only have the shoe on for a few hours at a time during the day. So cram your foot in there, even though it hurts. No, I can't do that. Um, I'm more like, hey, if you like the shoe, get it. If you don't, it's not right for you. Sorry, we don't have your size. Um, I couldn't do sales very well. I am not good at sales. Although I have tried, I'm not good at it. I also was very bad at humor, and I've practiced humor and I've gotten better at it. I think that's a good life skill to have. Sales is not necessarily a life skill that we all need to have. Um, and I'm great at cheering people to and through whatever challenge they're facing. That is great. And my superpower is organization. And my calendar's color coded, and I have things organized. My closet's organized by type of clothes, color of clothes, and just pretty much I'm an organized person, and so that's definitely my superpower. But yeah,
Are we
sales.
heading on the verge of OCD here? Are we okay?
No, we're okay. I don't have to be organized. I choose to
Yeah.
be organized. And that has helped me in so many ways with my medical records. If I they're in 3-inch binders and they're organized by provider and date. And then I highlight the important information on each visit and I put them into these 3-inch binders. It's if you stack all the binders up on top of each other, it's 4 feet high. So that's a lot of medical records. And when I need to appeal to insurance companies or I have a new medical provider that I need to teach, I can go back in my records, pull out the information and say, I've tried this medication. It didn't work. Let's go to my pharmacogenomics test, which is right here, and see which one is suggested based on my DNA. And I have that ability as a patient because I'm organized. And I can get care faster because of being organized. So it's not OCD. I don't have to. I used to love, prior to getting sick, I would clean the house every day. I would vacuum every day. I would do the dishes. I would do all the things. And after I got sick, I realized those are little things in life. Those are things that you don't need to stress over. So those types of things, cleaning, I can clean, but it does take me longer, and I don't put guilt or stress on myself for having a mess that sits there or not getting my inbox emptied before I quit work for the day. Those types of things. But with what I am doing, I'm organized in a fashion, and I take a little bit of time, extra time to stay organized, so that when I need something in a quick, timely manner, I have that time and I can go, da, 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 here you go, and I can get onto something else.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on this, on the shoe sales, because is another part there that's, I mean, a bit like almost with the cheerleading and almost the advocacy is going, yeah, this shoe looks terrible on you, but it could look fantastic if, you know, if you put it out there, if, you know, if you sort of dressed it with certain things, you know, spinning the positive out of it, apart from going, that's a terrible shoe and it doesn't look good on you.
Yes, I am not quick-witted like you. Now that you've pointed it out, lesson learned. But I did not think of that. And it's something that I could in the future do better at. I just never thought of it, and nobody helped me with that suggestion before. So thank you.
There you go. Well, I think
Almighty Pete, so you just earned your name.
well, it's like someone said to me, it's like we're all in sales. You know, kids are in sales. I know my kids are, just buy and sell me. But you know, we're selling all the time, right? We're selling our cause, we're selling our beliefs, our visions, our missions, everything, right? You know, and you need to bring people on the journey with you one way or other.
Right. But I'm the type of person, like, the first 10,000 copies of my book, patients would be like, I need this book. Oh my gosh. And I'm poor because I'm a patient, so I can't afford it. And I'm like, I'll give you a free copy. And I gave away literally 10,000 copies. And I wasn't selling very many. I had sold a couple hundred and gave away 10,000. So that's what I like. I wanted to help somebody else. So instead of selling it to them, I'm like, here you go. You know, I couldn't do that with somebody else's shoe. You know, it owns, the store owns it, so you have to take the money for the shoe. But I would have, if I could have given the shoe away, I would have been like, yes, you know what? It doesn't match this outfit, but I'm sure you have something in your closet that it could match. So take it home. You know, but when they're like, oh, you know, it's $30 for this shoe and I only have $20 in my budget, I don't know how I'm going to eat tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, eating's more important. You know, so I get talked out of the sale.
Mm. I love
And
it.
I'm not fast enough to think of a positive, although you provided me with one now, so appreciated.
No, listen, I mean, that's, I mean, we're all, I love the synchronicity. I mean, the journeys and the phases we go through in our life and the things that we learn. You know, I
Yeah.
think you know, I mean, such a fundamental change at a, you know, relatively young age, you know, and yet the journey you've been on since then and where you are now. And it's just curious the things that we learn, and then the sort of the view of why certain things happened. You know, I just find it amazing.
Yeah, I don't ever really ask, why did this happen to me? It happened. I say, how can I make these moments that I have left here on earth the best that they can be? What's my purpose? Where am I supposed to go? And you know, for me, I say hope a lot. I'm a cheerleader of hope. But like your podcast is named Fire in the Belly. And for me, that fire is hope. That's the spark that creates the forest fire that keeps me going. And it's just not necessarily in my belly, but I'd say it's like in my soul, which is down here in in my belly. So that really keeps me going. And um, you know, I connected when I saw your podcast and said, hey, I think I'd be a good guest. Part of it was the name of your podcast, Fire in the Belly. It reminded me of I have hope, and it's in me. And when you try to visualize where does that hope live, it lives in my belly, in my abdomen. It's me.
Is there anyone you particularly take after or inspired by or heroes, if you like? Is there anyone that stands out for you?
I would say I got my ability to multitask from my mother. She's very inspiring. She was a colonel in the U.S. Army. She was activated in Vietnam and Persian Gulf War, and she served our country. And she was an amazing multitasker. She also she was the head of nursing at Walter Reed. She also, which is a military hospital in the United States. She also was the head of the Virginia Department of Health Association. She went back to school to get a doctor of nursing. And she also, at the same time, my parents were divorced. She raised 4 kids. We got to do every activity we wanted to do. She fought for me to get the education that I needed to get, even though it was a struggle and challenge. But she never let that affect how she let all 4 of us excel in the areas that we had a talent in. And each 4 of us were different in which directions we went in life, but she always encouraged us to do those things. My dad taught me entrepreneurship and to live the best that I can, no matter what situation I was in. And he was a great father in laying the bricks and foundations that we needed in life, so that when he was gone and passed on to heaven, that we would have the skills that we needed to keep going here on earth. He made sure we had those before he passed away. Another big hero of mine, who you guys would know, is Paula Abdul, who is a singer, songwriter, dancer, choreographer, singer, actress, amazing. She's an amazing person, but she also lives with the same medical condition that I do. And a lot of people looked at her and said, she's drunk, or she's high on drugs, or she's doing this or doing that in her life. And really, a lot of the cognitive problems she was having were due to the amount of pain she was in while she was trying to live a full life and do all these other accomplishments. And she has gone into remission herself and is still has good and bad days, but is doing much better. And she's someone that I highly look up to, because she has shown us that despite this disease and this diagnosis, that you can still live a full life. And she's somebody that I look up to and aspire to know that I can dance again. And I've got to be friends with her. And when I met her, I started having dreams again. For many years, I didn't dream about cheerleading and dance. I used to choreograph in my sleep and wake up and have a new routine. That's how much of my life it was about dance and cheerleading. And when I met her and we got to talk and build a relationship and friendship, I started dreaming about dance again. And then I met someone who has danced with her and done choreography, Billy Blanks Jr. His dad does Taibo, so you might be familiar with his dad. He started his own program called Dance It Out, and he does adaptive dance for people that have physical limitations like myself. And he actually showed me that I could dance again, and that I could adapt dance into a new form and get up and dance in public. And I have done many of his classes through the years, and he's become a friend and a hero to me as well. So, it really, they brought dance back into my life on a real tangible level. Even though I'm never going to be a professional dancer or professional coach ever again, I still have that aspect of me, and they were able to help me bring that back into my life.
That's so powerful. I mean, that's strong people around you. Wow, and that's so inspiring, right?
For me, it's super inspiring, and we can't do everything alone. We can't be like, I'm going to be the end all be all. I learned that in my first marriage. You have to work in teams. You have to find people that can help you. They're out there. You just have to reach out and seek out for help. And there are people out there that can help you. And if this person is standoffish or they can't help you, They might know somebody who can, or they might not be the right connection. Keep asking, keep checking, keep saying, hey, I need help on this. And then when you have a blessing or talent in your life, be willing to share that with others so that it will improve their lives in the areas that they need.
Absolutely. What I mean, what's a bit of a guilty pleasure for you?
Mm, reality TV. Netflix, reality TV. Um, this past year, I thought I've lived with chronic pain for a long time now. This past year, in November 2009, November 2nd, I developed a lung condition called valley fever that's known to affect people in the southeast of the United States. It's a fungus in our uh, dirt. And I promise you, I didn't go out and play in the dirt. I thought I would never get it because you usually get it from playing in dirt. But you can also get it when the spores go up into the atmosphere and they come back down and you breathe it in. Because of RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, I have a weak body, and I had my rib removed, which also weakened my lungs because I had a complication with my right lung. So my husband and I were exposed to valley fever. He got it, didn't even know he got it, got better. The only way we know is he had something show up in a x-ray once. And he was like, oh, never even knew I had it. For me, I could not breathe. This was right before COVID hit. And just months before, I could not breathe. I was on a breathing machine for 3 months because of valley fever. And I learned that breathing is more important than pain. Shockingly, when you can't breathe, you can't live. And it was terrifying. Pain is not fun. It's hard. It can kill you if you don't get it under control. But you don't have an imminent death where when you can't breathe or it feels like you're breathing out of a stir straw and that's all the air you can get at a time. And every time you try to take a deep breath, you choke on the air. That will teach you that life is so much more about living each moment to the fullest it can be, and how important breathing is, and being mindful of your body, of what you're surrounding yourself with, of how you talk to yourself. And having that experience. And I still actually am positive for valley fever. I'm allergic to the one medication on earth that treats it. I took it for 10 months and it actually caused me skin ulcers. I got 3 additional fungal infections, different fungal infections, while I was on an antifungal medication. And it has been a process to get through. Stopping that medication, looking at my pharmacogenomics test results, stopping that medication, although I still fully can't take a deep breath, I am doing better not on the medication. Shockingly. But knowing that I made it through not being able to breathe properly, I mean, really not be able to breathe, where I needed a breathing machine to help me. It's a life experience for sure.
Wow, I mean, there's so many, God, there's, twists and turns in your story, and it's a lot of perseverance there. It's not for the faint-hearted in many ways.
Yes.
But yet your reflection and the way you come across, certainly there's more energy, more power, there's more perseverance than people who are, I'm going to call them able-bodied. I don't know if that's the right.
That is actually the right term.
There we go. It's
Yeah.
isn't the contrast amazing?
It is. And I have also learned in my journey, I used to try to help everybody. Not everybody wants help. Not everybody needs help. Some people want to live and are comfortable living in whatever it is that they're living in, even though I have something that could help them. they stay in that realm, and that's their choice. And I can choose different, and I can choose better for me. For them, that's where they choose to be, and for them, that is their better. And it is hard to, as an optimist by nature, it's hard to be around people that are pessimistic all the time. Although in my role, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I need help, and they're a pessimist, my optimist will still try to help them to the point where I see that I can no longer help them, but I still will try, and I will answer their questions. They might not like my answers, but I will answer their questions to the best that I can. And that's good enough. I don't need to save them. And that's not my job, isn't to save them. My job is to offer some tips and tools and resources, and then let them choose what they're comfortable with for themselves. But you can't, optimists can't change a pessimist's mind. There's a quote, I don't remember who said the quote, but a person's mind changed against their will be of the same opinion still. So I can give you all the information. I can be as cheerful as I want to be, but if you want to not take my advice, help, or hope, that isn't on me. That is your choice, and I respect your choice as an optimist.
What are you capable of?
Everything. What am I not capable of? There's things that I physically can't do, but when my mind is set to an end goal, I'm going to accomplish it. And how I accomplish it might not be traditional. It might not be, what do they say, normal, define normal. But I can still accomplish it. I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. It just is going to take time, effort, and energy.
Makes sense. What's the nicest thing somebody could say about you then?
That they see the cheerleader in me.
Mental, emotional, physical, the
Yes.
cheerleader in all the forms.
Cheerleader in all forms. That they see it. That my actions show it. That I'm living the life that I talk about.
And when you talk about living your life, I mean, what would be your core values or soul values, whichever way you look at it?
I don't know. What would be my core values? Being the best I can be, being nice to people. Some people use the word kind. Being hopeful, being helpful when possible. Not always putting me first, although keeping me up there in the list. I believe that God wants us to take care of ourselves. So I would do my best to take care of myself, although I do recognize that I need help in some of the physical areas. I believe in God. I believe in being the best human I can be, not hurting other people on purpose. If I do hurt somebody, that I recognize and apologize for any hurt that I may have caused, but not doing any harm or hurt on purpose. And leading by example. I don't know. I don't have like a list of values in front of me, but that's what comes to mind when I start thinking about being the best me I can be. It would encompass all of that.
That makes sense. I think and a strong theme as well is being connection as well. You know, that sort of connecting to others as well seems to be something that serves you well.
Huge. I had my life flash before me. My doctor had made a mistake, and my bone of my rib had 2 spurs left on it. One was going into my lung, and one got hooked into my brachial plexus nerve bundle. And I had 5 lung collapses. One was a full lung collapse, and I had to be rushed into surgery. And I thought I died. My life flashed before me as if I died. I didn't see a white light or that type of thing. What I saw was 1,000 pictures with 1,000 words all at the same time of my life. I understood everything in the blink of an eye, and that encompassed my life to that point. And the only thing that mattered was human connection. And since that day, which was in November 2003, since that day, I have tried to live with the intention to have the best human connections that I can.
Wow. It's an amazing lesson. Whether you go, I mean, would you, is that an NDE and a near death experience, do you think, or?
I do believe it was a near death experience, and I don't believe that I was in heaven. I believe that God knew that I was coming back to earth, but my body was failing me at the moment, and my lung collapsed, and it was laying on my heart, putting pressure on my heart, so my heart couldn't function properly. And it was to me, it was the near-death experience. It was all the good things that you could ever imagine and more. Like there's not even an earthly term for the feeling that I went through in that moment, in that time. It wasn't just like a split second. It was a whole ambulance ride, taking me into surgery, my dad fighting with the doctor or the nurse before surgery because I had a Victoria's Secrets bra on and she didn't want to cut it. And he was like, literally, my daughter is dying. I don't remember this. He told me after. He's like, get some scissors and cut it off of her. What are you trying to do? Like, this isn't the time to take and stop to take off her bra. I will buy her as many bras as she needs, save her life. It was that kind of moment. And you know, I didn't know any of this was happening around me. I was in heaven. I was in blissfulness, peace, positivity, love, hope, light, energy, all the good things that we have on earth and more in that experience, in that time when I was gone.
It's so, even as you say, I mean, it's very positive. That sort of calmness.
It was amazingness. And there's nothing on earth that can compare. And I will have that again one day. But for now, I'm here and this is my purpose.
Where do you go to get grounded, to connect, to chill, to, you know, what's your sort of favorite go-to place?
I have a few. So the Bible. If you're having a bad day, for me, I can go to the Bible, open it up and read any given passage. And it typically is something that's helpful for the moment that I'm in that I need to get through. But I also love a book by Ayn Rand called Atlas Shrugged. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but as the psychologist in me, that book teaches you how to go through human connections. If you're having trouble connecting, or if you're in a group and you don't quite have everybody in the group on the same personality or wavelength, for me, that book taught me some psychological tools to be able to interact with other people who think totally different than I do and still accomplish a united goal. And then the third thing I like to do is mindfulness and physically go take off. I don't like shoes anyway, but go outside and put your feet on the earth and feel the vibration of the earth coming through your body. And if I don't have the ability to go outside, I can, if I'm having like a physically severe, painful day, I will sometimes have my husband sit next to me and I will touch him. If he touches me, it doesn't work. If I touch him, just one touch, and just hold my finger there, and accept his positive flow of energy to me, it helps me feel better. And that's the weirdest thing, but I get that same energy from the bare ground outside. Not that I'm playing in dirt. I'm not playing in dirt. I'm not moving around. I could rest my feet on the dirt without playing. But rest your feet and then go inside and wash them. But to have that positive touch, kind of like a battery. If you put the battery in backwards, even if it has energy in the battery, you don't get it. When my husband touches me intentionally, I don't get that same energy. When I touch him, I get the positive negative flow that I need. And he goes, well, what about me? I got to take your negative energy because the positive's moving into you. I'm like, but you're healthy. You're able. You're able-bodied. You can take a little bit of negative from me and let me have your positive energy. So I do that. And then another go-to would be virtual reality, putting on a headgear and being immersed in another world where I can look at an aquarium of fish, or go skydiving, or things that I couldn't do with my physical body. I can do it with this world inside of my VR gear.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I'm fascinated by, even that with your husband. He's almost like it's like an earthing rod for you almost. It's like almost a charging point, earthing rods.
Yes. He is. And like I said, if he's like, oh, you feel bad, like he'll like to pet my hair or something. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. That's not how it flows. If he's having a bad day, I can touch him and try to give him some of my positive energy. But if I'm needing it, I have to be the one that's intentional to touch him and say, give me your positive. Or I'll let him, on his bad days, I let him touch me to take some of my positive. But it's an intentional passage of good energy.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much there. And even going back to the cheerleading, it's like, it's passing of positivity in a different form. It's communicating, it's connecting, it's passing of energy, good, bad, well, good intentions, good connections.
Good, yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's so strong. What's a really proud moment for you?
Oh goodness. I've had a lot of proud moments. I would say my first proud moment is coaching at the Rose Bowl, which is the national championship game for football, college football in the United States. And there's been less than 100 cheerleading coaches that have coached at the Rose Bowl. And I got to do that twice. So that's huge accomplishment for me. And my first book, having a severe learning disability. And at the time I wrote my first book, it took 6 years to write that book. And I physically wasn't able to write or type during that time. So my right arm was curled up. I could like peck with my left hand to type. And so what I did is I found another way, and I talked my book into a tape recorder and had it translated into text. And I was able to publish my first book. Some people can do it faster. I've learned to be able to do it faster. My 9th book took about 6 months from start to finish, about 3 to write. And having a learning disability so severe, my elementary school principal told me that I should forget about college because he didn't even think I was going to graduate high school. And to be able to publish a book that became a best-selling book was huge for me. That I never, ever, ever saw that coming. It was not a goal. It was a necessity. And it was part of fulfilling my purpose that it came about. And it's been used in classes, in medical classes, to teach people that are becoming medical providers about chronic pain and the journey as a patient, what we go through. And patients from all over the world have read it, and it's in multiple libraries, including the Congress, the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., but it's in libraries around the world. So that is a huge accomplishment as well.
Just curious there and thinking as you mentioned earlier about the roller coaster and going around 8 times to get it. It's almost like the 9th time you got it.
Yeah.
And then there's 9 books. It's like it's not something you necessarily wanted to do, but you kept going and kept going and kept going until it's like
Until the purpose is fulfilled. Until
yeah.
I have the lesson learned. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're dogged if nothing else. You just keep
Right?
going, keep going.
Like I said, I have fear. I am afraid of a lot of things, but I don't let the fear stop me from accomplishing a goal and getting through it. It might slow me down sometimes, but it will not stop me. I will accomplish what I'm supposed to accomplish.
And I find that curious because I mean, with language, we often will hear with people, and it's that they're pain based. That's they're pain driven. If you
Mhm.
like, that they're typically in the psychological way, it's fear or anxiety or whatever. It's I'm doing this because I don't want that.
Yeah,
Whereas what comes across from what I'm hearing is you're motivated by the pain, but you're inspired by the pleasure, which is such a wide, powerful range there.
absolutely. And when I feel the anxiety build up, I have done this for a while, but I didn't recognize I was doing it until I couldn't breathe. But one of the things that I do is I go like this and rub my own hands together, and that disperses the anxiety for me. And so if I'm ever in an anxious situation, I'll rub my hands.
Wow.
I thought that was something interesting, and I don't know I don't know how I did it. It just came out of necessity, I guess. Like, oh, that anxiety is so much that I got to get it out, and that's how I get it out.
Change it to hate. Makes sense. Hate dissipates.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With your drive and that, I suppose. I mean, I'm a bit of a fan of Les Brown and a lot of the motivational speakers, and there's almost an element of what he talks about, even in sort of your story would match his in some way. Little bits of it. Not obviously, it's very different, but I love the actual. Despite everything, it's actually made you a better person as opposed to I'm sure there's so many left and right turns could have been taken to sort of say, yeah, poor me. And as you indicated, other people have chosen different ways to deal with this, and some, unfortunately, not, a very permanent way of dealing with it. But yet you thrive and you drive and, you sort of rise to the top. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, uh, talk about rising to the top. Life is like climbing a mountain, and you're going to have peaks and valleys. And I realize that sometimes you think you're on a mountain and you're in a valley and you're thinking, this is horrible what I'm going through. It sucks. And then you look around and you realize there's somebody in another valley that's on a different place in the mountain, and they're looking up at you. They're on a peak and they're looking up at you and they're going, I wish I had that. I wish I was there. And you're thinking, oh, I'm in a valley. This sucks. And you're struggling to get out of this valley you're in when somebody else is looking to you as their motivation and their inspiration. And they want to get to where you are, and you feel like it's a low point for you. And always know that you don't reach the peak until your purpose is fulfilled. So you're going to keep having ups and downs all the way up the mountain. But as long as you're moving forward, you keep going up towards your purpose, and you win multiple times. And wins, big or small, should be celebrated.
How do you celebrate?
I dance, even though it's not the same dance as I used to do. I shake my palms like a cheerleader has pom-poms in their hand.
Mm.
I shake my palms to celebrate. Sometimes I will have a dessert or a snack or a treat to celebrate. Sometimes I will celebrate in my low points, and in my high points, I will wait to celebrate, and I'll take those times to share one of my low points. Because I think that it's important that people know, even though I'm positive, I still have challenges and troubles physically and mentally getting through life. And when I'm in the middle of my valleys, I try not to share that I'm in a valley. I try to share my celebrations online, especially in social media. That's when I'm most positive, when I'm having my toughest times. And when I have my celebrations, I save them sometimes for those valleys. And when I have a peak accomplishment, I will do something, like my husband and I will do something and we will celebrate, or I'll do a dance. I get up and do like a little jig for them, for him and myself. When he's having something great happen, or if I have a friend that has something great happen, I'll do a little jig. But I try to celebrate the most when I'm at my worst, so that I can have something positive even in the worst of times, and remember the worst of times even in my positives.
Wow, so many lessons and learnings there. Yeah, yeah, it's borrowing and reusing your energy, and yeah, there's so many takeaways. Tell me this: if you were to describe your fire in the belly in one or two words, what would it be?
Hope, which brings faith and endurance. But hope would be my fire in the belly. And it's, again, it's something that sometimes I have more of, sometimes I have less of, but it's always there. And another analogy, when they say the cup is half full or half empty, and your optimist will say this way and a pessimist will say that way. For me, it doesn't matter what's in my cup. My cup is always full. And when you look at my cup and you see that it's almost empty, I see a full cup, because what you can't see is my hope. Hope is invisible oftentimes, and that is what is in my cup. It makes my cup full all the time. Sometimes I have a little hope, or I need a little hope, and there's other things that are filling up my cup. And sometimes my cup is empty of other things, and hope is what gets me through and keeps my cup full. So my cup's always full. My belly is always full. Not just because I have gastroparesis, but because I have hope.
So powerful. I love it. Barbie, tell us, where can people learn more, hear more, track you down, stalk you, follow you, all the usual?
Absolutely. You can stalk me at my social media, which is my name, Barby with a Y, Ingle, and on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Actually, on Instagram, it's Ken and Barbie Show, because I share that with my husband. And that's how you find me on social. I have a website, barbyingle.com. And then if you have chronic pain, or you know somebody who has chronic pain and you need some help, hope, or resources, you can find that information at internationalpain.org. And it's a great resource. So I do invite you to reach out and see. We work with 150 different conditions. So definitely, if you're needing help in any of those areas, we have a whole team that I help lead, and we'd be happy to help you.
Wow.
Can I ask your audience something?
Of course, please.
So Fire in the Belly is an amazing podcast, and Mighty Pete is doing his thing. I need you guys to like, subscribe, share, and let other people know how much you love his podcast, and give him a review. Let him know that he's awesomeness to the fullest by giving him a review and showing how much you are thankful for his podcast and everything that he's doing for us and for the world.
I'm humbled. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, connecting, right?
Absolutely.
Is there a
Absolutely.
final message you'd like to leave with our guests?
I think I've shared this throughout, but I'm going to sync it up a little bit. There is great reason for hope because there is help. All you have to do is reach out and ask.
Barby, I'm truly inspired, and I think there's so many great lessons there for so many people, you know. So I love your story, I love your message, I love your energy, your hope, and your faith. So yeah, keep being the best version of you, and yeah, until the next time.
Thank you so much. Blessings. Mighty Pete, thank you for having me.
Thank you.